Welcome back to the DJ Sessions, where we feature the best DJs and producers from around the world. I'm your host, Aaron. Right now, we're doing the virtual sessions in Seattle, Washington. And coming in all the way from Austria, we have Camo and Krooked on the other end. Gosh, Reinhard and Markus, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And welcome to the DJ Sessions.
Our pleasure. I mean, in the times and age of Zoom and those online meetings, of course, the distance doesn't matter. So that's nice to sit at home at the same time do an interview with the DJ Sessions. It's awesome.
Yeah. What's really awesome about that I like is now, obviously, we can expand and talk with people all over the world, interview, and then follow up with them regularly instead of having to wait for them to come to town and be in person. We still want to do those in-person interviews. So whenever you get to Seattle, we definitely want to get you in the mobile studio or on the show. So you two have been working together for 15 years, roughly. Started in 2007, been a long journey, long career. Primarily, I would say your style of music is drum and bass. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I have my good friend Monty Hathaway with Compound Records would love to have thrown some questions into this. Unfortunately, he's not awake this morning to throw me some questions, but want to give a shout out to them because drum and bass is one of my favorite genres of tracks. We used to have a local night here, Drum and Bass Tuesdays, and it still actually is going. It's like the longest running drum and bass night in the world here in Seattle, Washington. And I started going back in college almost, 20 some odd years ago, and just always loved that aspect of the drum and bass, the higher end energy that it would provide. And you two have been doing it for 15 years, concert shows. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And you just released your latest track with, please forgive me on the name. I know we said it before. It's Mefjus,
exactly.
Mefjus. And it's called, the title of the track is called You. Tell us the inspiration. What were the thoughts and everything that went into the making of You?
I mean, it always comes down to when we get inspired by something, it's usually not drum and bass, because this is our basic approach to making drum and bass. If you want to make something cool or fresh, you don't want to kind of regurgitate stuff that's already within the genre that you work in. You always try to bring in new influences. And I think at that time we listened to a lot of like four to the floor stuff, mainly John Hopkins and Stefan Botzin, one of the big guys within the scene. And for us, that was always really interesting because they always have some really cool polyrhythm going on within their tracks. And also, drum and bass is really known for using sounds that are really out there and that sound like, heavy wavetable modulation and whatsoever. So most of the time we actually like, let's simplify things, because these guys, they use some old hardware that's like a Moog synthesizer, or like John Hopkins uses mainly an MS-20, I think, a Korg. That's a machine from the 70s or 80s, and they most of the time can only output really simple like oscillator waveforms, like a sawtooth or a sine wave or triangle, square, and so on. And most of the magic happens within like the filter and the drive. And so for us, this was like, what? Let's actually try to write a piece of music that is, from the sound point of view, quite simple, but keeps evolving into something more and bigger, and like add some kind of more wizardry on top the further the tune progresses. And it was actually really difficult to write this track, I have to say. It took us, I don't know, like at least half a year. The idea has been even lying for longer around, but the further we got into it, the more stuff kind of we collected, accumulated. And in the end, we were like, we have like 4 different parts in this tune. How should it actually be like arranged? But then it started making sense and started clicking. And here we are, tunes done and released finally. But it was a difficult one, we have to say.
Yeah, I could definitely tell. It was, when I first was listening to it, I was kind of taken back. I'm like, this doesn't necessarily sound traditional, but then it felt like it was taking me on a journey. And I was like, oh, the songs, I was listening to it just as I was doing some research on y'all, and the song, it started to fade out. I went, oh, okay, it's over. Let me go. And I went, no, there's still about a minute left on this track. And it kind of caught me back into it and brought me back into it. So it's very interesting, your approach that you took on that. And I was going to ask, how long does it take you usually to produce a track? You mentioned you'd been working on this for a while until it all clicked. Is that usually the natural progression for a track being released by you, or do you bounce them out once a month? Does some tracks take a year? What does that look like behind the scenes when you're releasing the track? I'll throw this over to Reinhard.
It's very different from tune to tune. Some tunes, you have like the idea and you execute it, and suddenly it already starts to vibe and it starts to click like right away. But to be honest, we have like lots of ideas laying around that are still like trying to be like get back into it, still trying to click. So, but you never know. We always try like to get the most of the tunes, and it's very hard to tell when it's good enough, kind of. But that's as well nice why we have now Matthews on our team, and he is like a super good wizard in the studio. So sometimes we have a tune with like lots of part, like the music is done, the vibe is there, but we maybe haven't nailed the drop like completely. And it's good to have like another part who can give that a try and maybe smash it or maybe not. And if he cannot smash it, then nobody can. And then we know it's time for like to go into a different track for us. And as I said, it's super different from tune to tune. But as well, we're not always like producing music, working on the next track. Like lots of parts of producing music is just learning new techniques and just going in circles and learning new techniques that then you can like use in new tracks, because we always try to learn something with a new track, and this is how it kicks us.
Yeah, and that is awesome when you have that kind of collaboration spirit going on. And we were talking a little bit before the show. You two never produce tracks in the studio together. Everything you do is remotely, even though you live about an hour and a half away from each other. You're still constantly doing that. I assume with Matthews. Hopefully I said that right. That I assume he's out there working remotely as well, or does he live locally in your area? Do you get to collaborate with him in the studio?
So Matthews actually lives in Linz, which is like 2 hours approximately away from Vienna. So we actually all work remotely. When we have an idea, we Skype, and we send each other the drafts that we had in mind. And the thing is, all good things take time. And especially if you think about, we don't just use like drum samples, we even write the snare drums, everything from scratch all the time. We don't really recycle things. Really rarely we recycle sounds, but then we kind of modify them again. So just to sometimes make the perfect snares, it can take a few days, and you just need the time for yourself, because maybe you have something in your head that if the person would be sitting next to you, would be like, okay, that's already good enough. Let's keep that and go to the next thing, But when you actually take the time for yourself and you have a vision, you sometimes need a few days to realize it. And there is no spot for any sort of pressure. And we all appreciate it, especially working with Martin. We are perfectionists in any kind of way. If there's something not right, then obviously we give it some time. And that's also sometimes why some tracks are lying around for quite a while, because we know we need to get some distance off the track and then revisit it at some other point, maybe in like half a year or a few months later. And that usually really helps.
I can relate to that on so many levels. After having to develop my own website, we're developing a mobile app, we're developing a virtual reality nightclub. I'm getting ready to get into AR and VR, and there's a lot of tech stuff that goes on the back end that people don't see on the front end. What your end user or your user, what your listeners hear is the song, but they don't know that may have taken 6 months to a year to get it just right. And having that break where I can relate, where I can I'll be so frustrated or something, I'll get up and I'll walk away from it. And maybe a week later, I'll come back and go, oh, that's what it was? Okay. And now it all clicks and it feels right and it moves forward. So I can relate to that on so many experiences. Before the track, you were working with Nephews on a song called Silentelo. Silentio. And
Siéntelo.
Siéntelo.
It's Spanish for I'm feeling it,
Okay, I was going to ask you what the meaning behind that was, but on top of that, I was listening to that track, and that kind of felt more at home with the traditional but I'd say drum and bass. Let's rock this out. So good work there. And you've worked a lot with nephews on stuff. What's that relationship been like working with them? It sounds like a great one. And is the future of Camo Krooked going to include a lot more of nephews in the tracks that you produce?
Yeah, like almost all of the recent tracks. So we have like during COVID, like our union got really strong because all of us been sitting at home, and yeah, what you're gonna do, you write music because you want to make the most of the time, and suddenly there is time to make music, because when you're on the road, like time is flying and you're either on the road or just recovering or already getting ready for the next weekend. So we really enjoyed that. And now we are sitting like on a big bunch of tunes, and actually we're starting a label with Matthews next year. And that's really exciting. And I think like we have like great ammo to fire up that label. I mean, of course, we have some Camo Krooked tunes here, still some Matthews tunes, but we have a big chunk of collaborations. And I think we are very excited about the music. And, you know, it's like, it's music that brings out the best of both, like Camo Krooked and Matthews, and that's great.
I think what's really important when it comes down to a collaboration like that, if you listen to all of these tunes that we've made together, they are so complex at points where you wouldn't want to make them just by yourself, you know, like there's three heads brainstorming constantly and thinking ideas and how the tune could like proceed within the arrangement. If like we were to make a tune like that on our own, we would get annoyed already by the thought of it, because it's just, you know, there's just too many things on the table that you have to take care of. And it's like, nah, this is too much of a thing to actually tackle. And when there's like three of us, we kind of, you know, outsource different things to do within the project. So everybody has his own thing to do within the project, and also has a kind of expertise, you know, and that works really well. I think that's also sometimes a lot of people try to compare us with Noisier, like since Noisier are stopping, they're like, oh, Camo Krooked Matthews, this is like the new Noisier. First of all, we aren't the new Noisier. Noisier is Noisier, and they are, you know, they have been innovators for the last almost 20 years, and nobody will take their spot. And Martin and us, we have this fun collaboration going. We do our thing on our own. We have our own sound. But I get the studio temperament that Noisy have always had in the studio, you know, like they all had their own expertise. Everyone has their own studio and they need their own time, and they all trust each other with what they do. And then they merge things. And this is how great stuff comes together, you know, and I think the approach is really similar. And this is maybe why people like to compare us to them.
Absolutely. And that does happen in the industry, that fans will compare, like, but you have two separate, it's like two chefs. They're both able to make food, but one's making this cuisine and one's making this cuisine, but they're both chefs, but some people try to relate the two together, but they're not relatable. Or one may say, like you just said, humbly, that you're not trying to replace them or be like them. You're trying to do your own sound, but the fans will compare that, and it happens. I think I would consider that to be an honor. If I was ever compared to like, oh, you're trying to do something and it's just like that, I go, well, thank you. Yes, we are. I think
it's also the look. It's two bald guys and one hairy man. I mean, Nick and Martijn and Thijs from Noisier, it's kind of like, similar constellation.
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, if you could take one of your productions and label it as your most favorite or notable track that you produced or album, which one would that be, and what's the thought behind it being your favorite?
I mean, I think like when it comes to album, my favorite album of ours was our latest one called Mosaic in 2017. But, it almost broke us. So after that, we kind of went away from making albums because it's just such a big project. And it seems the better you get, or the better we are getting, the harder it gets to finish off tunes, because, you always want to like succeed yourself and make something better than you have before. And it got really hard to finish tunes. So I think my favorite album from us is Mosaic, and I guess the favorite recent single is No Tomorrow that we released last year, and as well it was like the first single we released during COVID, and it reminds me of the whole time and just like being stuck in the whole loop. And but the music that came out of it was very like gave us all a new direction as well.
Yeah, I think for me, the most important one of the most important tracks, you can't really pinpoint it because there have been quite a lot of like milestones for us, you know. But a big turning point for us was All Night in 2013 on the Zeitgeist album, because like before that we made a lot of, you know, very dance floor-esque tunes, and then we were like, you know what, let's just try something completely different. And what a lot of people nowadays relate to, like, or say it's the anti-drop, it's the Camo Krooked sound. It comes from that time, you know, because we had big build-ups, but then like really tiny drops, and that was also the time where we listened to a lot of like minimal techno, etc. So that really inspired us, and I think it kind of started a really nice little, I wouldn't say subgenre, but a little trend within the drum and bass scene that a lot of young producers started to follow, and then really like created their own sound out of it, which was really amazing for us to see, to inspire that many people with something that at the moment you actually write it, you obviously like it yourself, but you never know if other people are gonna like it, if they can relate to it, you know. So that's always like a bit of a riddle. But then when the moment when you drop one of those tunes where you're really unsure if they're going to work on a dance floor, and then actually get the biggest reaction out of the whole set, you know, where you play a lot of bangers, then you actually know that you're onto something. So this, I think, for us was a big turning point in the career.
And while you're working on tracks, do you ever get to like a beta version of it that you maybe take out and test on the crowd before you release it and bring it back to, oh, this kind of worked, or this, do you do that kind of active testing on your audience before? Or is it's all in the studio and then we release it and see how well it's going to do?
No, there's actually lots of beta testing. So when we produce a tune, we only make like half of the tune more or less, and then go and try it if it works. I mean, you know, not every tune is written for the dance floor, of course. We are like well aware of that. But sometimes definitely you try it and look at the people, and if you have a tune that nobody has ever heard before and it works the first time you play it to them, then you know you're onto a winner. And that happened, for example, with Sientelo, and we have a couple more tunes where like, okay, this is something brand new, and it already goes off. That's always a very good sign. But of course it can go both ways, you know. There are some tunes where you're like, I didn't really catch the crowd, and maybe go back in and try to change something, or just accept that it's maybe not the biggest dance floor anthem. I mean, like we've been talking about our last single, You. That's of course not like, for us it felt like a small tune, you know, like because we played it out,
Or a
and
gesture.
it had reaction, but it was not all about the dance floor. And of course you're like sometimes a little bit unsure as well, because that's where you connect with the crowd, with the music before releasing is in the club. So that's why as well a lot of people write music for the club, especially in drum and bass. But now releasing You and having like a really huge reaction, I must say, online and from the listeners, and that it really caught them, beside not being an obvious like right in your face drum and bass tune, makes us happy, because we want to make more of a little bit more out there stuff, because this is what really like this is where it gets interesting for us, doing something different and not like making it as obvious so people can dance to it.
Yeah. And you know, I noticed both of you are in your studios right now. Question I got to ask, are pets allowed in the studio?
Well, look at my
look at Reiny's sweater. It's full of hair.
Yeah, look at that chair. Jesus Christ, it's not even.
So
all this mess there in the absorbers, that was all cat. You know, I mean, gotta scratch the nail somewhere. Yeah, no, of course pets are allowed. You know, it's like when you write music and they're here, and then you need to take a minute off. You just turn around, pet kitty cat. Oh, it looks at me already. Like, why are you so loud? And then back to work it is. No, it's really nice, of course.
Yeah,
I
just getting
want to
some
live without a pet.
natural dopamine, serotonin levels, I'm sure helps, you know, that bond would help just as a de-stressing agent in the studio, because producing music, it does take countless hours behind the computer screen, making the beats, sculpting the beats. What do you two do in your free time to stay fit and healthy?
So I mean, like, I think both of us would be more healthy and more fit, because like sometimes you just like, you want to go out, but then you start working on something and you get so caught up in it. And, there's always one or two more tweaks you want to do. And then you render it again, and then you listen to it again, and then more like a couple of tweaks, and then suddenly the whole day is gone. But for me, it's like, I mean, now it's winter times, outside is like 3 degrees. But if it's above 10 degrees, I go skateboarding whenever I find a free spot in my time. And it's really nice to recharge the batteries and just stay healthy, stay fit. So I'm looking forward for the winter to pass, because then I'm back up to speed with the movements and the skateboarding, I guess.
Yeah, I've been slacking big time recently, actually, in terms of fitness and sports. It's Christmas time. You gotta spoil yourself a little bit with the cookies. But other than that, I'm also skateboarding a lot. It obviously gets more difficult the older you get now, rusty bones and stuff. And now we were in lockdown, so even the skate halls were closed. Like, the lockdown literally just ended today. So I don't even know if the skate halls are open now.
Maybe, actually, I think so.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's a bit of a gray area right now. Nobody really knows what's going on. But yeah, it was a difficult time, and I gotta as well say sometimes it's a bit depressing when you like, gigs are canceled, and then you're like, oh Christ, I'll just sit in the studio and write something, to get the frustration off my chest, and you're not really motivated to go outside. So we haven't been outside much recently.
Well, it sounds like you're going to be getting back to getting outside again, even though it is 3 degrees out there and 10 degrees. Of course, for our DJ Sessions fans in the United States, that's 3 degrees Celsius, not 3 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be really cold here. But, that being said, it sounds like you're going to be being active again. You have a show coming up for New Year's Eve in London. Sounds like it's going to be a phenomenal time. That'll be some awesome stuff. Get you back out there. When you question here is, you have a good relationship, or you've been working with Hospital for a long time, and you mentioned earlier that you're looking to start your own label. Will you still have a continued relationship with Hospital and doing your own label as well?
Yes, that's definitely the goal. And it's not the first time that we part ways with Hospital Records.
Okay.
We did we did Zeitgeist and Cross the Line with Hospital Records, and then the album Mosaic we did with BMG, made our own label Mosaic, and been like with Ram Records. And after that came back to Hospital. And now the last release was with UKF, so we are like freelancing and just releasing with whoever feels right. The one before us with Hospital Records, and we just had the meeting with them and explained it. And I think there is like lots of mutual respect, and I really appreciate that. So we hopefully gonna still play the shows and be like part of the family, let's call it. It's of course the biggest drum and bass label, and there's no better home for us, I guess, rather than building your own. And that's what we need to try, because that's like the last step that is left to do. And it's a nice challenge we want to take. And there are no bridges burned so far, and you never know what's going to be in 2 years, but for now we want to give this a try.
Yeah, I mean, also we were deciding, because we made so many tracks with Matthews, we didn't kind of want to resurrect Mosaic, the label that we started when we released our album, because it felt too biased towards our side. And this is like it's a joint venture kind of thing. Everyone's in it, like we're in it together, and it has to feel well balanced, the whole project. So that's why we decided to start something from scratch, and also releasing on a big label like Hospital Records. So many artists are releasing on there, and obviously because we've been cooking up so many things to actually release that many things. You know, you have to schedule way ahead, and we like to actually be a bit more flexible now with our timings. So that's the only way for us to actually be happy with the releases and the schedules, was to just do everything on our own. And Chris Goss from Hospital, the CEO, he was actually super respectful, and he kind of already saw it coming, I think, because, you know, he knows we've been really quiet when it came to releases, because we've been cooking up so many things with Martin already.
Yeah, over here at the DJ sessions, we're actually toying with the idea of probably will be releasing and moving forward to doing our own label as well here in 2022. We're working with a really great team out of Europe, and going to be putting some stuff together. And it's a whole nother segment of business that I never looked at getting into. We started out as a live streaming show, and then I worked with a lot of local producers and events to put on events and local promoters. And then we started doing our own events, and then we became an event production company. And, you know, so much is going into that, and just managing the website and AR and VR and all these other elements coming in. You know, we're looking at taking that step of making a label ourselves for the DJ sessions. What's the best piece of advice that you could give to anyone out there that may be looking to start a label?
Reini?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it depends, you know, if you just want to, it's quite easy to start a label on your own. You just get a distributor, more or less. But I think that's not how, like, it always depends on your vision, you know, where like, if we have something to say for people that want to start the label, first up, you need good music that you're confident about, that people want to listen to it. And then maybe try to get a vision, think of a good name, like build a brand, not only a label like as a platform for your music, but a whole, in the best case, it's a brand people can identify with. It's just a cool statement and follows a red path, more or less. And that's what we that's what we trying to do. And in the beginning, just for ourselves, and then maybe sign other artists, but that's not a priority. But overall, I mean, you know, the label is not the problem. Music is key.
Exactly. I think the label should just be kind of a musical playground for the artist. If you are confident enough that you have some music that really represents you and will represent you in a few years' time, because it's always nice to be able to look back on your own discography and be like, yeah, I wouldn't actually have changed anything now if I had to release everything again. Is something you should just consider. Think about how you want to be representing yourself to the outside, you know, because in the end, as an artist, you're also kind of a business, you're a brand. And it just, if you have your whole CI covered, I think that's bread and butter, you know. It's really important. And a lot of artists, they just jump into, yeah, I make music and I release this tune and that tune, and they sound completely different, and they have no idea of their artistic vision in the beginning. So maybe think about that for a little bit longer, and then not actually regret it in a few years' time, you know, because I think that can actually be kind of the fundamental point of your career. If that fits well, then you start building on top of that all the time.
That's some great advice. I'll definitely take that to heart as we start moving forward into 2022. I'm going to shift gears here a little bit, because this is something that really gets to my heart of seeing you two doing these. It relates to your videos. Some of your videos that I was recently looking at: wind towers, glacial peaks, hot air balloons, my personal favorite. We wanted to do something last year, and we were going to call it the Got Air Sessions, and go up in hot air balloons and have DJs play. But tell us about how those came to fruition and what's next.
I mean, funny enough, you know, like it kind of was like, and none of these was our idea. It was people, like friends, approaching us like, hey guys, we have this awesome idea. And it all started with like 2019. We did like on top of the Vienna Ferris wheel, and on top of the Schönbrunn Gloriette. And with that, it started a trend. It seems like that people know when they want to do like a extreme DJ set and have like a great platform and lots of listening, lots of people watching, they come to us. And so the next thing was in the windmill, which was a friend like, hey, a friend always comes and like, I got a friend who has this wind park and he wants to do a festival. And you know, it's like teams that are super excited about the project. It's not really about the money and just want to make it happen. And it feels really right. And then like after this, then we went to the glacier and took Matthews with us to give it like a new twist. That was actually done by Radio FM4. That's like a local terrestrial radio station that we have a show on as well. So they did a couple of different locations in a special region in Salzburg. And then the next thing was the hot air balloon, which was as well like kind of a drum.
Just homies basically trying to do their thing, you know. It's really funny.
Yeah.
The thing is though, I think when you get approached, because we have been approached for some other things as well that just didn't feel right, that felt like the locations didn't really fit to our music, you know. We have to identify ourselves with the location. That's the most important thing. And then when you know the location, you kind of start planning your set, because with every location you kind of play a different sound, you know. Locations have a vibe and you try to kind of capture the vibe with the music that you play. But yeah, I think my favorite was the windmill one, to be honest, because that was, you know, it's a really recent topic, a very important topic, green energy. And the location is kind of one of a kind. I think there's not that many, I think maybe 5 windmills, wind turbines in the whole world that you can actually walk up to, that have this touristic platform. And there's one in Lower Austria. And yeah, the team was super cool. You know, the owner of the wind turbine was there. And then the guys that did all the technical stuff, they're actually old friends of ours. They did like a live show of ours about 8 years ago. And yeah, shout outs to them, because actually it's kind of crazy. I think there were like 700 stairs to get up there, and they had to walk there like 20 times a day to get all the equipment up, you know. Jesus Christ.
So, I mean, wind towers, hot air balloons, glacier peaks. This all sounds amazing. I got a question for you though. Have you ever seen a UFO?
Well, I mean, all I can say is we haven't played in one. That's for sure. But everything else, I'm like unsure.
Awesome. And you
don't
know,
think I've seen one. No,
I don't think so either.
I kind of would like to see one, to be honest.
Yeah, I've never seen a UFO myself, but you know, definitely if there's 2 people that deserve to get on a UFO and do it around the world or in the universe, you 2 definitely are setting that trend to be the first to be up there and doing that. When it comes to live streaming, is that something that you started doing last year, or is that something you're looking into making kind of a staple of doing live streams for your listeners?
Well, I guess, you know, we always like to play DJ sets, of course, and get the opportunity to play something different than in the clubs, because in the club you of course you play your own biggest hits and build, you know, a set around that kind of that pleases yourself and pleases the crowd and just the people that they come to see you. And with the set, with the different location, you can go a little bit more out there. Like on the balloon, we played more like a liquidish set, or just you have the theme, and that lets you explore all the music you already have kind of forgotten about. And that's kind of the beauty about it. And overall, I'm pretty sure we will continue. You know, now there's a pause. We felt like last year 3 like in a row was quite a statement, so we are not in a rush, but next year we're gonna do it. And it's as well very nice to like premiere like forthcoming music on the stream, and so people already know about it, they're excited about it, they know it on the gigs, they just want to get their hands on it, want to listen to it on Spotify. It creates a buzz, and that worked really nice with the last streams. So we're going to continue that next year. We have a couple of opportunities for next year. Let's see which will be coming to life.
Yeah, I'll never forget. It was 2013, and I had a DJ producer by the name of George Acosta come by the studio, and he was in the studio, and some of the first dialect we were having with each other says, "What do you want me to play?" And I said, this is your stage. You get to play whatever you want. And he says, you mean I don't have to play my club stuff? I go, no, this is your playground. He goes, this is going to be an awesome show. And I mean, I realized that at that moment, I had always expected that somebody was going to come by and play what they played in the club and get that experience. And I realized it was better to give them an open palette and say, do whatever you want, because some of these people, while they might be a house DJ or, you know, a trance DJ, they might be into drum and bass and go, I never get a chance to play a drum and bass set to an audience. And this is obviously 2013. So 7 years ago when live streaming wasn't necessarily that prevalent, you know, to have them just be able to open up and let them play what they want to play without that restriction or expectation is just awesome. So good for you of wanting to take those, you know, those experiences and create it and tailor make it and make it something different. I think that's where live streaming can really benefit, is that you're not always expected to see this nightclub or this template of what you expect to see over and over again from an artist, and they can experiment on multiple different levels and create and distribute on multiple different levels and get feedback in real time. You know, that's one of the things we're looking at here at the DJ sessions and creating our virtual nightclub is, you know, being able to have people from all over the world come into a room and still experience a live music set. We're actually working on some really cool technology I can't divulge right now, but you know, that's just going to be kind of another experience rather than getting away from the 2D element. So,
Yeah.
and you guys, you literally are taking 3D to a level. I mean, imagine if some of these places had 360-degree cameras and people could go in and kind of be part of your show in a 360 element experience, whether in that hot air balloon flying with you, you know, but you have all these, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be really awesome, which kind of leads me into my next question. Have you looked at VR and or the future of AR and incorporating that into your distribution or outreach?
I have looked into VR. I think it's a great piece of technology, you know, but I think we are really in an early stage when it comes down to it. You know, I'm really curious to see where that whole Facebook VR integration is going to take VR, because obviously that will be a massive push towards mainstream. I think right now it was just a problem that not that many people have VR goggles yet. You know, it is a very kind of niche market, but I'm really curious to see where creative minds are going to take it, because I'm already blown away by the possibilities. I mean, you can use this, you can put it on, you can actually play a drum kit in MIDI trigger sounds in your DAW, in your sequencer, you know, just by doing this. It's epic as hell, you know. So, you know, you could even take it further. Like, you could get people to like collaborate online in a like in a virtual recording studio, for example, and things like that. You know, there's endless possibilities. In terms of club environment, I think also that we're not 100% there yet. But like when it comes down to VR, but you know, just give it time. It's crazy where technology is going at the moment. I don't know if you've seen the latest Unreal Engine 5 reveal with the Matrix game. I mean, that's pretty much already hyperrealism right there. And, you know, obviously VR is way higher resolution, but when that is nailed, it's going to be insane.
Yeah, it definitely, we're looking at that. And with Facebook just releasing a few days ago, they just opened up Horizons out of beta. So now everyone can get into that. You know, it's very interesting which of these worlds, though, will become the world to go to. Obviously, Facebook running Oculus, or I'm sorry, Meta running the metaverse now, or whatever how they're going to do it, is going to be interesting. And I think you're right. That was something I was talking about last year, was the price point has to become digestible to the consumer, to the end user, and the experience has to be one that everyone can kind of latch on to. If I, as an end user, when I first put my headset on and my friend jumped me into VR chat, we're walking around and within 2 minutes I had vertigo, and I was kind of like, you know. And then when I play something like Beat Saber, you know, I stand up and I'm moving around doing everything. I get no vertigo because my body is completely in motion and sync with this. So it happens to the best of us. And so, you know, overcoming that will be an interesting thing for the metaverse. But a friend of mine actually hit me up this morning, and we were talking about augmented reality and the ability to purchase land in it, or what I would call land or squares in an augmented reality environment. So I can go buy a famous area, say a stadium or nightclub, and I own that piece of land there. And then inside of that, if you want to advertise or put anything up in there, you have to pay me for that.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really, really awesome, that I think we're going to look at that as AR for our, we do a lot of what are called silent discos or silent concert events, and the ability to make an AR stage where somebody could come and like bring their phone, or once the glasses come out, Apple's developing glass. We know other people are developing things, but once those come out, people are going to come and have a AR experience in a way that you could never really do. Like would just be, it's going to be awesome. I just always ask everyone, what are you doing? Are you looking into this? This is kind of the future of what's happening. And also it sounds like you obviously have an Oculus sitting right there next to you. That's awesome. What about NFTs and releasing tracks or releasing certain things on NFTs? Is that something that the both of you are also looking into, especially with the new label coming out?
I mean, we were considering it for a while, but we are not 100% sold on the whole NFT idea. So we kind of wanted to steer away from it, also, to be honest, we didn't really get that much into it yet. We obviously know a little bit about the crypto world, etc. But NFTs for us was kind of like, it didn't feel right. It just has to feel right. And we were also talking to Martin about it, and we were talking to our graphic designer about it. And like, this was basically when the first few NFTs came up, like last or beginning of this year, end of last year. I can't remember when that was. I like the concept, but I feel like at some point it's not fully thought through, and it doesn't feel right for us. That's why we kind of steered away from it. I don't think we are gonna do it at some point in the future. Yeah.
I think there was a moment like when, like a year ago, there was like a proper moment when everything was super new, and there was this online auctions and people got rich of it. Of course, like everyone was talking about, we should do an NFT, but as well, to me, it doesn't feel like the right thing. And now you're even having like a little bit of a backlash by the fans and the economical reasons and stuff. So I don't know. It's just to be honest, it feels weird to sell away a wallpaper that should be for free, but that's just me.
But the thing is, it can go wrong in so many ways. I think the Pendulum did NFT, and there was a bit of a backlash from the fan base, and then also I think somebody screwed up in their management by actually just uploading the whole NFTs, like all of the NFTs, in the highest possible resolution on their webpage that you could just download for free. So it was a bit of an odd one. And also, I think with NFTs, there's so much crap out there. Literally, like, it's like everyone's taking the run for the money. And if we do something, we should do it proper. And we actually thought about it, like kind of make some continuous thing, like cut it up in a few like episodes. But as we talked about it before, when we want to tackle something, we do it proper, and it will take us months, and actually I'd rather just release a tune normally rather than an NFT. The classic
And if
way.
it's no new content, it feels a little bit like people just do it as a cash grab. But
and we don't want that,
I'm not too much into the whole thing, so maybe I'm not right, but
Yeah, no, totally understandable. I was sitting there looking at the reason why is a friend of mine is looking to start up NFTs, and he was talking to me last night about, when the new version comes out, I think it's Ethereum 2 comes out. It makes it a little bit more secure. I mean, my head starts to when it comes to this stuff. But he's like the expert on it, and literally an expert on it. And I was looking at, I have like 2,200 past episodes of my series. And I'm like, what if I were to NFT each one of those, and somebody like a fan of the show could say, I want to own that one. They don't own the copy. I mean, I guess there's different levels you can own and give away and assign rights, but we could put all these episodes up and say, I own or have the rights. I don't know. It's all new. And I just know some artists are releasing NFT tracks. Obviously, you see the logos and the graphics and those kind of things going out as well. But just one of those hot topics that's kind of trending right now, and want to make sure we're asking that question to everyone to see what their thoughts are on it. And we'll revisit in a year from now maybe and say, hey, you're like, our whole library is NFT, or no, we didn't go that route.
I think I might be really wrong about it, and I'm a noob about the whole NFT thing, but for us it was like there is some inflationary thought behind it, whereas I understand with art, if you acquaint a piece of art that is physical, it's like somebody painted it, you can see the structure on it, it's a one-off thing, you can't copy that. With an NFT, you can decide by yourself, oh, I'm gonna make 10 copies of that, with 10, each copy, it sort of has some sort of like, it's self-inflationary, and it takes away the value of the piece. And as well, because yes, you have your own kind of NFT, like a copy of it, but it is still a copy, you know what I mean? Like, and that's just because it's a digital piece and not something that exists in the real world. So you can't really compare those two things, I get the idea behind it, but this is the gripe I have with it,
I mean, yeah, if I were to go into a virtual reality environment and went to an art gallery and somebody said, look, I got this NFT painting of this, why couldn't I just screen capture it and put it up and go, I got this picture of this?
That's what
Who's going to care?
Who's
going to really care?
Exactly. It's,
copy.
like if you want your exact copy of the Mona Lisa, you have to steal it, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody made a digital Mona Lisa, you can acquire an NFT. But 5 other people have exactly the same NFT maybe. But or if you actually have it, then you can give it to your friend and he has it as well. For, you know what I mean? Like it's not the same.
Yeah, totally. And I see it from a standpoint, like you said, if an artist were to make a single piece of artwork and then sell that piece of artwork with the one NFT attached to it, then I see the benefit of the artist, because you have a singular, you own the piece and you own the NFT. And I don't know if it would say something like, if you ever sell the artwork, the NFT transfers ownership with it. So it's like, I used to work at, a friend of mine used to own a baseball card shop or a sporting memorabilia shop. And one of the things we always asked was, how do you know that that signature is a real signature on that basketball or on that baseball card? And they would provide certificates of authenticity and all they could do to prove. But unless you have a picture or a video of you seeing the person sign it themselves and hand it to you, and that is like, you wouldn't know. And there is a lot of fraud in that industry. And so, will NFTs help to protect that kind of fraud in that sense? Think about it as if you were licensing like a white label album or a white label track, and it went out NFTs. You can say, hey, these are, you own that. Only 50 of these went out on NFT white label, and somebody goes, I got that actual. But again, somebody could just copy the MP3 and
exactly. That's the thing.
Who cares, but to a collector that might mean something, to a so
well,
anyway,
if somebody wants to buy a tune for us for big money, please just contact us. It's no problem. Like easy. We make whatever. We do it just the other way around. We make it personally for you.
Awesome. That's good to
mean
know.
Like the Wu-Tang album with, what was the guy called? Martin Shkreli? The guy that the farmer guy that bought that one Wu-Tang album and never showed it to anyone.
Yeah. About the rights
that way as well.
Yeah, that works. So couple of finishing questions here. If you could go back 25 years in music history, if you had a time machine, go back 25 years or go forward 50 years into the music future, which one would you pick and why?
I guess I would go back, because then then you would be king with all your production techniques.
Yeah, I think I would go back as well, as a producer, but as a visitor I would go forward just because of curiosity. music is evolving so fast, but who knows, maybe in 25 years time, actually the same thing is cool again that we're doing right now, because music always goes in circles. You know, trends just repeat themselves with new production methods. And maybe, you know, nowadays everything's kind of a remix, a bootleg or whatsoever. And it's basically just, it's, we call it cultural cannibalism. You know, there's one idea, there's another idea, put them together, make it your own. This is like how everything works nowadays. And you realize that actually 99% of the stuff that is out there actually has existed before. Maybe not as good, as well produced, you know, blah, 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 but it existed. So I mean, who knows, you know, I might be totally wrong. And no, don't mark my words. Maybe we can revisit this in 25 years time. And I hope I'm completely wrong. But when you think back now, 25 years, what was cool? Actually, pretty much the same thing that's cool right now. You know, big baggy pants are coming back. You know, the late 90s are cool again. So yeah.
That's when I got started, was in the mid to late 90s. It'd be good to see some of that come back, especially the original concept of the togetherness of the music and everyone coming together, and instead of it fractioning off in so many separate ways. I remember going to my first rave in 1992, and there was a club we went to, and even the club experience and the rave experience that I went to, you had everyone from every different walks of life getting together, and we were all just celebrating music. It didn't, you had the goth kids, you had the candy kids, you had the jocks, the sports people, you had, you know, the nice dress VIP, you know, it was all just about music and coming together, and everyone was just having fun. You'd see somebody and just say hello, hi, and it was a very unique experience that I haven't necessarily felt until I've gone to some festivals that I attended over the last few years. And those festivals were more that kind of genre, and they were more the non-commercial festivals. You know, those I see it tend to be a little bit more, you're stuck inside, you have to pay, you know, $15 for a bottle of water or something like that. Whereas the more open festivals, you found a more opening sense of peace and love, and kind of the PLUR, I always say that wrong, that used to be there years ago. I should know that term. I don't know why I stumbled on that, but anyways,
plur.
Plur.
Peace, love, unity, respect.
Peace, love, unity, respect, you know, and hoping to see some of that starts to come back in the electronic music world, which would be awesome.
You know what, actually, I think with all the negativity that COVID brought, it kind of actually reset the whole club thing a little bit again, by, you see people having so much fun now when they're out in the clubs, you know, and they are so eager to just listen to music, and there's no bullshit around it. It's like the energy right now in the clubs is insane, you know, and you see everyone is having an amazing time. And also, because we talked about it before, the difference between the live streams and the club shows that before COVID, you had to, you know, everyone had to play their bangers, and that's what the whole night was about. And now everyone actually wants to listen to the stuff that they missed out on in the last 2 years when the clubs were closed. And that was not only bangers, you know, that was like super weird stuff that was doing really well. And that's what people want to hear now in the club as well. So I think actually this was the positive outcome of Corona. It kind of reset the club culture a little bit, and it made people eager again, and actually realize to what they were missing out and what the clubbing is about, you know.
Absolutely. Have you ever visited a faraway country where you were surprised that people actually knew all of your music?
I mean, we've been kind of all around the world, but I mean, we've been like in the middle of Russia and stuff, and even played good gigs there, and we're like, how have they heard about Camo Krooked and drum and bass? Or as well, if you go like to Japan, and there's like it's not really known for a big drum bass scene, but then you come to the club and people sing along to your tune, and you're like, okay, cool.
And they're super really appreciative, you know. It's kind of a cultural shock in the most positive way possible. It's beautiful. And I mean, there's like, if you go to the whole other side of the world, to New Zealand, which is like the longest way you can actually travel, I think, from Europe, and the scene is as strong as it has never been before. And actually, I think New Zealand is pretty much one of the best countries for drum and bass right now. It's crazy. So, you know, the internet kind of it doesn't really matter anymore where you live. You have access to the internet, you can stream tracks, and you can be fan of anything, you know. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then going back to our conversation about VR and just expanding upon that even more, you know, I'll give you a preview of the technology we're working on is the ability to, instead of having an avatar in a virtual reality environment, we're working on having a real live person in that virtual reality environment. I could walk up and literally look you in the eye while you're on stage. And I could go around behind your head and be on stage with, you know, you as you're in this virtual room. It won't just be the avatar. So when we start seeing importing our real selves, not a digital version of ourselves, our real self into these environments, that's going to be the next level of things. And you're going to have people be able to experience that, like you said, halfway around the world in New Zealand, or if they're in, you know, Japan or the United States, they'll be right there watching you perform live on stage. It's gonna be some awesome stuff. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for the interview. Is there anything else you want to let our DJ Sessions fans know about before we let you get back to work in the studio?
Well, if you want to make music, take your time. If you want to start a label, make good music first. And yeah, I hope you like listening to music or just mixing music or whatever it is. It's all beautiful. And I hope we're coming back to Seattle soon enough. I mean, the last time we've been there, it was like, I think I just looked it up. We've been 2013 at the Lucky Festival. But
okay. Yeah, actually we've been afterwards. We've been again.
Yes. Can you remember? It was quite a big festival as well.
Yeah. It was the Lucky Festival we played, but then afterwards we played a few club shows actually in Seattle.
Yes. Okay. It's good. It's good. Like the scene in Seattle is good, and as every drum and bass fan in USA always says, drum and bass is coming back.
My friend Monty with Compound Records and Slant Tooth would definitely agree on that one. I think we should maybe keep the door open with you two about bringing you over here to the States. We'd love to get you here as soon as possible, and that'd be great. We could definitely talk about that offline.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, next time we'll hopefully join you in the studio.
That'd be awesome. Yes. Where can people find out more information about you two and what you have going on?
Best way is to just join us on Instagram, instagram.com/Camo Krooked, written together, and Facebook, Camo Krooked. You know, this is, I think, the best way. We are also just releasing some new merchandise, you know, so we're sending it worldwide. This is the old piece. There's a new piece. Actually, I have it somewhere here. Give me a second.
Is this going to be available on your website soon?
In the next few days.
And it's with Martin Matthews, so you know, it's brand new stuff. It's for the new single that we made. We wanted to, because we really like the artwork, so we wanted to put it on a t-shirt.
Awesome.
But yeah, if you don't know yet what you're gonna get your friends for Christmas, now you know.
Get that merch. Get that merch. CamoandKrooked.com. Camo and Krooked. CamoKrooked. I said that right. Yes. Krooked. Awesome. Thank you two so much for coming on the show. We'll catch up here with you in early 2022, finding out what's going on with you. Keep the conversation alive. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. And don't forget, you can go to our website, thedjsessions.com. Find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, hashtag us the DJ Sessions, or TDJS if you're so bold. This is Camo and Krooked and Darren coming to you live on the virtual sessions presented by the DJ Sessions. And you know what happens on the DJ Sessions? The music never stops.
It stays in the DJ Sessions.
And stays in the DJ Sessions.